focus on one of the harder problems, which is the manufacturing space, which is frankly where this whole thing is targeted to begin with, which is how to secure the supply chain for the US such that we're secured against foreign threats, insider threats. Their primary method of how they go about doing that is they leverage access into the organizations.
Hi, I'm Steve Plumb, Editor-in-Chief of SME Media. We're here today at CES 2026 in Las Vegas at the Advanced Manufacturing Showcase. Here with Rob Sims, CTO for Alchemi Data Management. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So the company's about 2 years old. You launched to address cybersecurity threats, but then it all changed with the introduction of the cyber maturity model certification requirements, which went into effect last year, about October, and companies now have a year basically to meet that.
Correct.
So that's a pretty tight deadline.
It is.
Tell us what that means in real terms.
Yeah, so the Department of Defense, Department of War, implemented a CMMC, which is what easier to repeat, 2.0, required for their suppliers, any supplier of federal government space, to be compliant with. And when we looked at this, we realized that the same thing the government did, that this is going to be next to impossible, because there's going to be a whole lot of people out there, consultants and others, telling you what they think. Instead, we focused on actually just solving it and making it a product, if you will, a way to just implement and get through this in a very timely manner at a very cost point that was a fraction of what a lot of the people in the market are saying, which was frankly, the government and the timeline is scary enough. The prices that the consultants and others are quoting just make it this crazy impossibility.
Yeah, so you have really three challenges. You have one, the threat itself. You have two, meeting that threat. Then you have all the different voices and the cost to implement.
Correct. And so we wanted to cut through that, but also to focus on one of the harder problems, which is the manufacturing space, which is frankly where this whole thing is targeted to begin with, which is how to secure the supply chain for the US such that we're secured against foreign threats, insider threats. Their primary method of how they go about doing that is they leverage access into the organization. So that's where we focused, and we're excited to have launched a solution for that here at the show.
So at the same time, there's a lot of change in technology. There's also a drive to reshore and changes on the supplier network.
Right.
How does that all impact everything?
Well, all of it requires this compliance, number one. So part of what we wanted to do is make that part not scary, not complex. We have a process we trademarked called Policy Craft, and its whole goal is not to be consultants that are telling you what to do or what you should do, but actually we go and generate all of the required documentation for the customer by interviewing them, understanding who and what they are, and quickly being able to go generate all the required documentation they need, combine that with the secure enclave, and we now have 100% of the controls covered, and they're ready for an audit. And we do that within a very short period of time.
So, it's different for every manufacturer. The large organizations obviously have a lot higher volume, many different plants, but maybe they can implement a common solution across those. For the smaller companies, where do they stand in terms of meeting this requirement, and what do they need to do to level up?
Well, right now, most of them have not done anything because, let's be honest, the government has traditionally implemented many things and then changed due dates and changed requirements and kind of backtracked. Well, in the case of CMMC, it's only been reiterated and actually with teeth. The Department of Justice has been brought in, and they've actually started to prosecute companies for not for that have stated they were compliant, but in reality were not. And so I think the world we live in terms of manufacturers or people that supply the government have just woken up to the fact that this isn't going to go away, and the penalties are huge. How are we going to go implement this? And so the timing is not good in that there's limited time for them to become compliant, and there's frankly not even enough auditors out there to go through it all for them. But I feel strongly that the government will be open to the fact that they have gone through the process that they're working on. Because they haven't been audited yet, that's not really their fault. They can't really accomplish that.
So you mentioned earlier that you're launching a new product, Nexus, at the show here.
Yeah.
So how is that different from what you had previously, and what does that mean to the industry?
Well, we started the company focused on solving the insider threat issue for cybersecurity. A lot of the cybersecurity solutions, if you take the analogy of a castle, they were the wall, they were the turrets. Their whole goal is to keep the bad guys out, right? And that's great. You need all of that. But the issue is you got a whole bunch of people inside that have access to what you are and the crown jewels and everything else. So what are you doing to protect against that? And there's a big gap in that space associated with individual users. And so we built a product called Shield CRS that is focused on that kind of insider threat. But Nexus takes it up to a pretty much higher level, where Shield is actually part of our enclave. And this enclave provides 90% of the CMMC 2.0 requirements. Mostly 10 points of them are from our tech, right? Shield brings what most people have is around 80 or 70%. We get up to 90 because of the tech that we create. But that then gets us the compliance enclave, and then Nexus takes that and then manages and starts the controls that are missing to the shop floor. Things like operator authentication, things like limiting exposure to CUI, controlled and classified information, which is the build files, right? I mean, if you know how to build this gear for the F-18 jet engine, that's something we need secured.
Right.
And so this begins with our master vault, which is a single source of truth that has check-in and check-out controls that don't allow a single user to have access to anything. But then the operator, once authenticated, will only see the parts they're allowed to build on only the machines they're allowed to build them on. They select, we then control the move of that flow to the machine. They build the part, we then purge that file from the machine because that's a point of exposure. And we collect all the data and telemetry from that process and store that back to the vault, because that data itself is also CUI data right now that's been generated. So it needs to be controlled. And that's what Nexus is doing. It's simple in its role, but complex in the fact that connecting to every machine and machine type from history to now, being able to create a cohesive, correlated data set, time-wise, and everything else is other issues that are there, and all of the tech required to actually securely transfer data from a cloud to an actual machine.
So you launched it at the show this week. Is it already available out in the market?
Already available. We already have initial customers that are either in process or have signed up. The show's been great. Been a lot of opportunity there. Partners are starting to sign up, which is interesting as well, because there's a lot of folks that are kind of in this gap of what do? We need compliance, we need manufacturing, but what is out there? And Nexus is quite a unique solution that just doesn't exist in the marketplace today.
All right, well, Rob, good seeing you again, and it sounds like you got your work cut out for you over the next year.
Yeah, it's exciting. We'll see what happens.
All right, thanks.
All right, pleasure.